Roma arrived in Laguna Beach expecting quiet. She didn't expect a single afternoon to change the way she thought about creativity and community forever. By sunset, a group of strangers, a tangle of yarn, and a park overlooking the Pacific would pull her into something she never planned to be part of. This is a gentle story about knitting, art, and the unexpected places we find belonging, told against the cliffs, beaches, and quiet magic of Laguna Beach, California. The Creative Globe presents. Across continents and cultures, creativity takes countless forms. Each story follows a maker, an artist, or a dreamer on a journey shaped by craft, connection, and discovery. This is Roma in Laguna Beach, and it begins on a sunlit cliff above the Pacific Ocean. Chapter 1. Arrival at the edge of the Pacific. I can't believe I'm really here. It's so beautiful. The pale-skinned woman looked at her surroundings with wonder and appreciation, not realizing she had spoken out loud to no one in particular. "Who wouldn't marvel at this scenery?" came a voice surprisingly nearby. "It's one of the best the West Coast can offer." An attractively tanned man passed by, answered as though it was a standard conversation. He appeared to have come specifically to the spot where Roma had been standing, admiring the tumbling blue waves below the grassy park. He was, in fact, removing his backpack, placing it carefully on the picnic table between the two of them. He stared. "Are you with the group?" he questioned pleasantly. "The group?" She stuttered and frowned. There was no way for Roma to know in what direction this unexpected conversation was going. Momentarily stunned, she was surprised and a little suspicious. Having only arrived at the John Wayne Airport that morning from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Roma Beckworth had had a lifelong desire to come here. Everything she had heard of this small oceanside city called Laguna Beach sounded like heaven on earth, and for a week, her quest would be to enjoy every hour of this cultural town and hopefully bring back a little creativity into her life. The Handcrafters, he stated, as though everyone should be aware of the name. He looked her up and down. His expression was perfectly readable as he took note of her pale shoulders and upper arms. "Aha! You're not from around here, are you? Sorry, my name's Mark. Welcome to Laguna Beach. We are a knitting and crafters group. The main group of crafters is up the canyon at the village, but the knitters love to come here." And with that, he proceeded to unpack his things, placing them carefully on the table. Sunscreen, a baseball cap, bottled water, a pamphlet of some kind, and then, to Roma's surprise, a bag of what appeared to be a knitting project. Chapter 2. The Unexpected Gathering. Roma's attention was completely diverted from the magnetic pull of the Pacific Ocean to the contents of the table she had to ask. "Is that knitting yours?" "Of course," Mark replied, understanding her surprise. "In the winter, I'm a cross-country skier. We need warm clothing to survive. Knitting long socks with 2 colors makes them especially warm, and I like knitting. Plus, I love to surround myself with great people, and knitters are the best." Just as Roma now detected a slight Scandinavian accent in his speech, 2 cherry-faced women came to the table and proceeded to empty their bags. Now, knitting projects covered the table. "Oh, how delightful!" the elder one exclaimed. "I see colorwork, lacework, and what's this? Ah, cables, the 3 pedestals of knitting," she concluded. Once introductions were made to include Roma into their group, 2 more friendly faces joined them. Roma was about to excuse herself to make room for the 2 men who just arrived, when they surprised her as they unstrapped what she took to be beach chairs and discovered these were very lightweight easels. The backpacks revealed an array of supplies for watercolor painting. The kits were compact and appeared to have everything required for creating professional art. Clips on the easels held watercolor paper, which was taped to a thin board that had the dual purpose of securing the heavy paper as well as establishing a clear border around what would eventually be a beautiful painting. Brushes, paint, and water appeared. And what was that? A small bottle of Courvoisier was quickly tucked away. Noticing he was being watched, the old man mumbled quietly, "Helps tame my shaky hand," and the evidence quickly disappeared. Alcohol was definitely taboo in the park, that is to say, except for artists. 3 more members came to join the group, 2 of them bringing their own seating arrangements. "Come join us." An attractive woman offered a smiling invitation to Roma, while embarrassment flooded Roma's face when she realized her uninvited stare at the group activity was now noticed by each one of them. In unison, they all turned to face her. Roma's pale face turned pink in spite of her effort to stay calm. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to intrude." "Not at all, my dear. My name is Francis. I've been about to finish my latest knitting project. Here, take a look." I chose to use a dun-coloured mohair to quiet the bright apricot fingering yarn I'm using to complete this lacy shawl. I've been working on it for 2 months. What do you think? Too heavy for a lace pattern? Roma brightened and said, "This is beautiful. I hope when my project is nearly completed it will look as good." The bag she had been clutching so close to her body was released onto the table with the other knitting projects. Now more comfortable in her surroundings, she added, "I'm definitely behind what you have accomplished. My pattern requires 2 skeins, and I'm only completing the first one. I'm only halfway done. Patience, my dear. The wonderful thing about knitting is that you can enjoy the journey, and when it's over, a lifetime of making use of your creation is your reward." And with that kind remark, their attention focused on the colourful projects at hand. The day couldn't have been lovelier. The quiet corner of the park was removed from the bustle of the town shops and the lively activity of Main Beach. Chapter 3: Seals, Stitches, and Surprise. The collective concentration of the group lasted until the anxious voice of an enthusiastic child could be heard coming down the park path. "Look, look! I can see parasurfers!" The excited child was pointing at 2 surfers in the distance, being pulled along by the wind in their colourful sails. A rooster tail of water sprayed gaily behind them at every turn. "That looks like so much fun, Dad. Can we do it?" And their conversation faded as they moved away down the path. It was Mark who rose from the table to get a better look at the scene. "Oh, look!" he yelled enthusiastically, getting the attention of the group. "They're back." He referred to the seals on the outer rocks. "I haven't seen them for months." It surprised Roma to see the excitement those sleek animals caused. Were they not common players in the coastal saga? It seemed that the feelings for the seals by these people portrayed the response of parents welcoming home their long-lost child. It was definitely a statement of genuine connection these people had with their environment. A moment of warmth and kindred spirits, coupled with the salt air and the warm breeze. Cameras and iPhones appeared as focus turned to the sea, and the seals had their sole attention. The picnic table and its contents was ignored, except for the youngsters who had been playing ball in the nearby grassy area. Their attention turned to the abandoned table and its contents. They approached the turmoil of projects, and without further thought, stepped forward to examine the forgotten bounty with their eyes and hands. "Looks like a hornet's nest of string." One child laughed, losing interest almost as quickly as he'd found it. Others drifted in to take his place. Curious fingers lifted the knitted pieces, tugging at loops and turning the work as though the stitches might reveal their secrets. What began as innocent exploration quickly unraveled. A soft gasp followed as stitches slipped free from the needles. One needle clattered and rolled across the picnic table, and another child froze, watching as a careful row collapsed into loose loops. Nearby, a length of wool slipped from its order and gathered itself into a growing tangle, an innocent mountain of yarn with no clear beginning or end. No! Look at this! Another young boy pointed to a partially finished oceanscape on an easel. Wouldn't it be great to be able to do this? The attention of the others were brought to the artwork on the easel, and in a static moment, quietly and reverently admired the work. "What are you kids doing there?" The shout could be heard all the way to Pacific Coast Highway. The gruff voice of the watercolor artist boomed out like a foghorn on a misty day. The kids were stunned into inaction. They were afraid to run, and more afraid to stay. The confrontation became serious when the knitting projects were scattered without thought on the table. The horror on the faces of the older people made the young girls want to cry. "What are we going to do?" exclaimed a woman who picked up her knitting, seeing that the needles were laying far from her work. Mark took a position in the center of the melee, soothing over the rising confrontation. Chapter 4. Curiosity Unraveled. "Maybe it would be a good idea to find out what you kids had in mind. Anybody want to talk about it?" he asked, reasonably without intimidating them. The youngsters were confused, but one courageous girl stepped forward saying, "We were just curious about all this stuff." Mark registered the conflicting answer without missing a beat. "Well, which of you kids want to dig in and learn something?" The rest of the artists, having given up on their photographic endeavors, were turning their center of attention to the drama, facing the young miscreants. Their combined outrage was evident when they faced the youths. "Get away from my paint," the older man growled menacingly. The tallest boy stood his ground because of Mark's friendly approach and replied, "I guess I should have asked permission first. Your painting is terrific." It didn't take long for the compliments to sit in. The old man suggested a closer vantage point and asked, "You are want to try it?" And before the others returned to their areas of work, the prior combatant were diving into the requirements for watercolor painting. Roma took note of the young girls who were about to flee and spoke up. In spite of the nearly hateful looks from the other knitters, she took the opportunity to save the situation. "Would any of you like to learn how to knit?" "I know how to knit," one of them piped up. "My mama taught me." The older woman, who called herself M, smiled wickedly and replied, "Then come over here, darling. I'll show you how we put stitches back on the needles and pick up the lost ones." And the girl complied with innocent enthusiasm. The other knitters took the hint when Roma stepped in with her tangled yarn, saying, "Who would like to help me with my project? I'll bet we can fix it in no time." Another child timidly stepped forward to receive instruction. It wasn't long until industry rather than destruction took the front row. Chapter 5. The Birth of Young Handcrafters. Mark viewed the group and the eagerness of the young artisans to learn the various crafts. A thought started to form of a way to continue to share the knowledge. Wouldn't it be wonderful to organize a regular workshop for all these youngsters? Mark followed up and took the reins. He stood. "It occurs to me, my fellow artisans, that what we have here is a magnificent opportunity. We are handcrafters. But how about opening our doors and sharing our skills with the youth of our community? Why not form a young handcrafters society? What do you kids think of that idea?" All 8 of the pre-teens jumped up and down with excitement. "Yes, yes," they cheered. Chapter 6. A community takes shape. Unseen. At first, Parents of the children had been lingering in the background, unsure of the evolving situation. One by one, they approached the artisans and knitters. "Is everything all right?" asked one concerned father. "I hope the kids haven't been bothering you." He addressed the entire group while singling out his son, who was more involved with copying a sketch that the now kind artist had made. "Oh, they're more than fine," Francis replied, smiling. "In fact, I think we'd like to speak with you about incorporating the children to form a youth group to our Handcrafters organization." The parents brightened. "Is this the same group that has the art galleries and market up Canyon Road?" "The same," she replied, smiling. "What a wonderful idea," one of the mothers called out. Em looked up at them from her knitting and quietly stated, "Tomorrow at 1 o'clock." It appeared she was the last word, as Em was president of the association. Chapter 7. Cliffside Reflections. That evening, Roma walked back toward her hotel with a quiet sense of contentment settling into her bones. She followed the path along the cliffs of Heisler Park, where the Pacific stretched endlessly below her, blue layered upon blue, flecked with white, where the waves folded into themselves. The salt air cooled her skin as the day softened into evening, and the sun dipped low enough to cast long golden shadows across the grass. At the stone steps, she descended toward Main Beach, the sounds of the shoreline rising to meet her. Laughter, gulls, the steady hush of the surf. She wandered along the boardwalk, passing the familiar white lifeguard station, its silhouette iconic against the glowing horizon. Near the sand courts, Roma paused. A group of beach volleyball players moved in fluid rhythm, jumping, diving, calling out encouragement as the ball arced against the sky. Their joy was effortless, rooted in presence rather than purpose. She smiled, realizing how rare that feeling had become in her own life. As twilight deepened, Roma continued south, the lights of Hotel Laguna welcoming her like a lighthouse. She carried the day with her, not just the beauty, but the sense of belonging she hadn't expected to find. Chapter 8. Stitches by the Sea. The following afternoon, Roma set out along South Coast Highway, drawn by the gentle pull of curiosity rather than any fixed plan. She soon found herself wandering into Laguna Village, where small huts and open-air studios spilled color and texture onto the walkways. Hand-thrown pottery, woven baskets, carved driftwood, and painted silks told quiet stories of the people who made them. Roma lingered, exchanging smiles and brief conversations with the artisans, feeling as though she'd stepped into a living gallery. Eventually, she discovered a small ocean-facing terrace and claimed a seat overlooking the water. A glass of chilled Chardonnay caught the light as she lifted it, and with a contented sigh, she reached into her bag for her knitting. Her needles moved almost on their own as the sea breeze played with the yarn. Soon, a plate arrived. Fresh seafood, simply prepared. Flavors bright and clean, as though the ocean itself had offered the meal. Roma ate slowly, knitting between bites, savoring the rare luxury of time unmeasured. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, she realized she wasn't just passing through Laguna Beach anymore. She was part of it. Chapter 9. Threads that Travel. Later that evening, Roma returned to her room and spread her knitting across the small table near the window. The piece had changed since she arrived, its colors subtly echoing the cliffs, the water, the warmth of the community she had encountered. She thought of the handcrafters, the way tension had turned into teaching, how curiosity had become connection. It struck her then that creativity wasn't something meant to be protected behind closed doors. It was meant to be shared. Roma picked up her needles again, this time with intention. She began a new section, envisioning something larger than a shawl or a single project. She imagined teaching, guiding, inviting others, especially the young, to discover the quiet power of making something with their hands. For the first time in years, her future felt expansive rather than uncertain. Chapter 10. A knitter's work is never done. Months later, back in Ann Arbor, Roma Beckworth paused mid-stitch as the morning news flickered on the television. The Laguna Beach Handcrafters youth celebrated their first anniversary today, the announcer said, describing a successful community art show held at the famed local art market. Images filled the screen: paintings, watercolors, sculptures, and at the center of it all, a remarkable quilt-like banner. Knitted panels blended together to depict the cliffs, the ocean, and the spirit of Laguna Beach itself. The commentary went on to describe the various art forms created by the youth of the community and culminating in the showpiece quilt. With that in mind, Roma felt she had participated in the historic formation of the now well-known Handcrafters youth. Roma smiled. She felt she had participated in the historic formation of the now well-known Handcrafters youth, a quiet witness to something that grew beyond a single afternoon in the park. She lowered her needles only briefly, then resumed her work, yarn slipping smoothly through her fingers. "A knitter's work," she murmured softly, "is never done." And somewhere, she knew, another place was already calling. Thank you for listening to The Creative Globe. If this story inspired you, subscribe for more creative journeys around the world. A new adventure awaits.